Now, Michael, we're now looking ahead to the Spanish Grand Prix. Is this more of a favourite than the Monaco Grand Prix? And just looking at the layout of the track, it's a very interesting layout. There's a good long stretch, and then there's plenty of bends there for the drivers to negotiate. So I suppose it's the type of track that makes both qualifying and the race itself very interesting as regards qualifying times, and also I suppose the time in the race and things like that.
It's different. It's you can actually overtake on this track, unlike the one that happened last weekend. You can actually overtake on this track. So I mean, I suppose qualifying, it isn't as critical as it would be for Monaco. I mean, where you're going to end up in Monaco is where you're going to qualify. Whereas in this now, it's a good track. It is. I mean, is a very long DRS zone along the main straight. Very long DRS zone. So if someone in from behind you has DRS, they're basically going to fly by and get a good distance ahead of you. And of course, there's a second one between turns 9 and 10. It is a great little track. I don't know if you've PlayStation it or anything like that. Fabulous little track to drive around on the PlayStation, I have to admit. You kind of get the hang of it eventually. Through doing that, I actually always find turn 9 quite hard because, you're trying to pick up as much speed as you can through 6 into 7 into 8. And then I tend to make a hames of it in 9, but that could be just me. And 14 as well, very easy to run wide. Very easy on the PlayStation anyhow. I'm sure these guys are vastly better than I am. So we can't really argue with that, yourself. But it is a fabulous little track. It's got a bit of everything, an absolute bit of everything.
But it could be easier in a real car compared to being on PlayStation as well. There could be that in it.
Well, that'd be nice if anyone wants to send me out there now. I wouldn't say no to it now, an aerial atom or something like that, No bother whatsoever.
So I suppose going through the qualifying, it's it's going to be very interesting, isn't it? It's and the schedule for that is as follows. Practice 1 is Friday. That's today. It was at 12:30 to 1:30. Practice 2 is 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and practice 3 is on Saturday at 11:30 to 12:30. Qualifying then is from 3 o'clock until 4, and the race starts at 2 o'clock on Sunday. So that's an interesting weekend.
It is, and it is most wins on this track. That's a good way of putting it. Well, two people shared, Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton, both have 6 wins on this track. I doubt that the ratings are going that Lewis is going to get number 7. But the most wins here for a constructor is Ferrari. And they have 12 wins. This is a typical Ferrari track. They absolutely adore this track. It really suits them and their cars and the way they think and things like that. That said, there might be a local guy from there who might want to win this race, considering he came second recently. He might just want to win this race, as to say.
We're not going to name names around him.
Not going to name names at all, no. The first race here, I'll put it like this to you. They celebrated their centenary in 2013. So the first race here was in 1913. That is just absolutely staggering when you think about it.
Was the cars around back then, was there?
Well,
apparently so.
It was now, of course, it would have been interrupted by the First World War, one would assume. And I think it waited for about a decade after that before its second race, or a second running, shall we say. And of course, then, that's the way it went. They were promoted to European Championship in 35, right before the Spanish Civil War brought in a sort of an end to it for quite some time. But it was revised in 1967, and it's been sort of regular part of Formula One ever since. It is a great racetrack. It was out on, I think, 1982 to 1985. They didn't actually get the contract because, of course, people think these races are set in stone. Well, they're not. There is a contract involved here, and if another bidder comes along and can do a bit more than you could do, you may not, you may not exactly stick around very long, as to say, someone else can get it. As we've seen in other countries, the race often changes from place to place. I remember when Brands Hatch used to be an F1 track. That's long gone at this stage. I was actually watching a documentary on it recently, and the banked turn of Brands Hatch, most of it is still there. Just incredible. That's a track I'd love to get a car and drive around quickly on. It's a little bit overgrown, but we could manage it. We could manage it. We really would.
You could nearly do hay on it at this stage. I suppose there's so much grass.
Well, yeah, you could say that. All right, yeah.
What about Mondello? What about do you remember? I know it's not Formula One, but Mondello Park. Do you remember that?
Yes. Oh, I actually saw Tyrrell when they were in Formula One. It was about 2 years after Tyrrell had quit Formula One permanently. And they were going around doing exhibitions all over the world. And where did they go to? Mondello. And they were doing a first time I ever saw a Formula One car up close. And I can tell you, Mondello was way too small for them, and they were way too fast for us. It wouldn't have worked out, as to say, if they had a race there, as to say, But look, you never know. One of these days, maybe Ireland will get an F1.
There you go.
I'll be there to open it anyhow.
We're digressing a small bit, and so
we are.
This is a more.
There has been two Spanish drivers that have won the Spanish Grand Prix.
Yeah.
One is Carlos de Salamanca. That was in 1913. Wow. And the only other one is Fernando Alonso, who's won it twice, 2006 and 2013. So I can guarantee you, Fernando Alonso, very much like 2023, he fancies himself. And actually, that's good, actually. I nearly missed that. Fernando Alonso won it in 2013, the centenary of the track, which was very, very good for a Spanish driver to win the first race and the next race 100 years later. Incredible when you think about it, So he's really going to fancy himself around here, I can tell you. And also, I suppose Juan Manuel Fangio won there too. Spanish speaking, but not a Spanish person. But he did win there as well. Now, if we're looking at the details of the track and the little bits and pieces, pole in 2022 was Charles Leclerc. I'm sure he would love to get pole again this year. I can't see it happening. It's either going to be a green car or a blue car. He's going to get pole here. Simple as that. And he did it in a 1:18.7 and a little bit of change. So that was a good time. Will they beat that for pole this year? They might, but it won't be by much. Now, the actual fastest car in the race last year was Sergio Perez. He did a fantastic job to finish, to get the fastest lap of 1:24.1. So that's a good 5.5 seconds away from sort of qualifying time. But that's kind of normal, really, when you think about it. Now, Charles Leclerc got pole position. His race didn't go very well. And Max Verstappen won, Sergio Perez second, and George Russell in the Mercedes third last year. So I'm sure George is going to fancy his chances this weekend too. Could be quite interesting.
Makes for very interesting. And I suppose, lap times are very interesting in this, given the way the track is laid out. Now, the good old thing that we always mention every week, higher selection. So it's going to be fine, and how many pit stops are advisable. It's kind of one of those things. And I suppose, what's the average lap time for in qualifying? And I suppose of all the drivers down the years, who has been the fastest?
Well, the fastest time, that's a good question, actually. I don't actually know the lap record around here. I actually don't know what it is, which is kind of scratching my head, thinking, how did I miss that one?
We can bring it up next week anyway. So that'll
bring it. Remind me in advance. I've a head full like Swiss cheese, full of holes. Charles Leclerc with his 1:18.7. I can see that being matched for Paul, and I can see the kind of 1:24-ish mark. You might even see someone getting into the low 1:23s with a bit of luck on that one. Traditionally, that's a good question. The final sector has been modified this year. They're actually going back to an original layout. There was a chicane put in to slow the cars down practically and make it more interesting. But they've taken it away and they're going back to the old one this time. Now, tire-wise, they're bringing the hard compound C1, medium compound C2, and soft compound C3. I wouldn't even overly worry about that. It's just the usual thing. Now, they're saying traction on the track is about average, mid-range. They're saying the track evolution is about the same as well. So there's not going to be any great surprises. As the rubber gets laid down and as the cars are driving on it, the tracks do evolve to a certain amount, with everything, with the cars racing on it. So they're not expecting anything there. As a matter of fact, really, braking expecting it to be decidedly average, and grip decidedly average. The only things that are quite high is the lateral forces on the driver. That gets right up to, if you have a scale from 1 is minimum and 5 is maximum, that gets up to about a 5, which is quite difficult. And I see the tyre stress is quite high too. And a 5 on the tyre stress, they could be looking at a 2-stopper here. I'm sure nobody wants to do a 2-stopper. Everyone wants to do a single stop. But if the tyres are going to go off due to abrasion very quickly, well, it might well be worth your while just to pop on the soft tires and go as quickly as you can.
But I suppose really the how long the tires last in a lap or lasts in a race is it kind of comes down. It kind of comes down to I suppose the driving style of the driver.
Oh, it does, of course, yeah, and the car itself. Several of the cars, Logan Sargent is I can't remember what he's driving at the minute, but his car is abysmally bad for tires, whereas the Aston Martin seem to, say nice things to the tires as it's going by. You stay in there now, you stay lovely. Fernando Alonso is almost a tire whisperer. Fernando's a tire whisperer. Really is. He really is very good. He's akin to, I remember Jenson Button. That guy was amazing. It was anywhere on anybody's tires. It wasn't his. It was absolutely incredible. So we will wait and see. It really does depend on the day, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if they go for 2 stops on this particular track. Probably it could be a medium and 2 softs. It could. Some people might try a hard and a soft. It's hard to say, but they may start off as 1 stop and may end up being 3, as to say. I suppose facts and figures about this too. It's it is a strange race. The drivers really love this race. The last 5 winners was Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, Lewis Hamilton, and Max Verstappen last year. So Lewis actually won it in 2021, which is the season he didn't win Formula 1. Max Verstappen won that year. But he did quite well to win that now, I have to admit. He did a very good job, to get there, as they say. And, there's going to be a lot of questions about this, especially about Sergio Perez. After his accident now in Monaco during sort of qualifying, and then another accident along the way on the track, and tipping into someone else and losing his front, end plate, as they say. There's going to be a lot of questions about what was going on there. So really, I think he's going to have something to prove, is Perez. I think he's going to want to push and do better. And of course, if he doesn't want to be overtaken by Fernando Alonso, who's on a bit of a charge at the minute, he's going to have to push a bit. And of course, we have the local guy, which is Fernando Alonso, and we have Mercedes upgrades that they say they are bringing to the thing. Now, the new track layout isn't really going to affect anyone. But the other thing that maybe could be pushed a little bit is the Alpine team. Since Fernando has left, the team hasn't done very well, and they like this track. And they really do. They like this with Fernando, and they like this track in general. And if they're going to make a push forwards, they're going to have to do it soon. Now, the controversial one is coming up next. The weather forecast. Brace yourself for this one. They're saying Friday, it's going to be a 40% chance of rain. Saturday and Sunday, a 40% chance of rain. So there is a good chance, really, when you look at it, that there's going to be a bit of rain. Now, Sunday is going to be, well, the temperatures are the same at all, really. They're expecting a max of 23 and a low of 15, which isn't, massive, but rain in the middle of a race is always good fun, as we see in Monaco with everybody going left, right, and centre. So yes, you can feel free to blame me if anything goes wrong and rain comes and cars go off the track left, right.
There you go, folks. You can quote him now. He said blame him. So I suppose looking at this track as well, this that one thing we all love, the safety car. Is that likely in this race? And if so, whereabouts do you think that that it will have to come out?
If everyone gets away safe, well, the good news about this track is it's not a narrow track. It's a good wide track. Okay, maybe you're getting into a turns 9, or turns 5. Yeah, turns, I suppose, 9 back to 5. They can be a bit dodgy if you're in high speed and you're trying to get past someone. But really, it's a good wide track. Normally at the start, there's always a situation where someone will tip on or someone come off the track. You're always going to have that situation because everyone's trying to jump everybody else at the start. But other than that, really, unless there's a bad accident, I can't see really any much trouble around this for safety cars, maybe virtual safety cars. But I think the actual full safety car, no. And we don't want to talk about it, and we don't like the safety car.
That's what I was going to say.
The old thing. They're on the track and they go, "Oh my God, is that a safety?" Shh, don't jinx it.
Yeah. So I suppose, like the race overall, the way it goes is kind of at what stage of the race and what part of the track is the winning and losing for a driver?
Yeah. Qualifying is as important here, as we've said already. The winning and losing part of this track, I reckon, is going to be the main straight. I'm not saying there isn't overtaking in places, and I'm not saying there isn't another DRS, and I'm not saying people are going to fight on corners as much as they can, but that main straight is so long. It really is very long straight, and is DRS for 80% of it. So, yeah, there'll be a lot of overtaking on that main straight. I'd say that's, if you're going to lose this, if you're going to be overtaken, I'd say 80% of the time that's where it's going to be. So I think if you can keep your nose clean for the rest of the track. So you may see drivers trying to lose the guy behind them through sort of turns 12, 13 and 14, which doesn't always work. Yourself, you can offer hinder yourself as well as everything else. So I mean, yeah, I think that main straight, it really, it's great to see our DRS there, but it's too long. It really is too long. I think it's just going to be someone get DRS there on a car and, goodbye and talk to you later. Unless it's a Ferrari. No one seems to be able to get by a Ferrari with their DRS up. It doesn't. So far. Could change this weekend. But so far, that Ferrari seems to have the power behind it to keep going. So, let's hope it stays there.
So which car then would it suit, or which team would it suit then with regards to?
Yeah, I'd say we're down to the terrible three, really, again, to be honest with you. We're down to Red Bull, Aston Martin and Ferrari. You can't doubt for a second that sort of Max Verstappen isn't going to do well here. Yeah. And you can't doubt for a second that Fernando Alonso wants to do well here, it being his home Grand Prix. So I'd say you'll be looking at the same. The spanners in the works, if there is any, should be Mercedes. I use the term should be. May or may not be. We'll have to wait and see. I would like to see George Russell getting his mojo back now and not being held back this time. But to be honest with you, I think if he's faster than his teammate on this race, yeah, I think he'll easily get by him. I can see that happening. I can see him easily getting by him.
There you go. You heard
so that's the winning and losing of that race, is to say. Hopefully, we'll see a lot of fighting and a lot of arguing and a lot of toe to toe and wheel to wheel, as to say. Fingers crossed.
Oh, you're into your drama. But you don't want to be watching the race where you'll be falling asleep either, like the Monaco Grand Prix. Although the noise of the cars will keep you awake anyway.
Oh, I don't know. After a while, it just puts you to sleep. And David Coulthard is very soothing.
Yeah.
Very soothing. You know, he's talking about the track there.
He
And
must
this
have
is
an
a
electric
terrible
car, does he?
the best one ever for commentating was Murray Walker, because if you were falling asleep the second something happened, oh, and he'd be shouting across the microphone, you know, he'd wake you up fairly quickly.
That's it. So I suppose your top five then.
Top five. First place is going to go to one of three drivers. I'm going to put it at Max Verstappen. As much as I'd love to say Fernando Alonso, I'm going to put it on Max Verstappen. If Fernando does win it, I would be happier personally. That would be the best situation, in my opinion. We'll have to wait and see, but I tip Max with Fernando on his back axle. After that, Sergio Perez has something to prove, and Charles Leclerc has something to prove. So I could see a big dice, providing none of them go off the track or get a penalty like they did in Monaco, or go off the track like Sergio did in Monaco. I'd expect to see the two of them fighting for third and fourth. After that, it could be a bit of a all over the place. It could be Hamilton, Sainz, or Russell. I would dare say again, fifth, sixth, and seventh could easily be one of the three of them. So I do see three separate battles there. For the first two, for the second two, and then for 5, 6, and 7 after that. That's the way I'd see it panning out. I could be wrong, but I might not always be right, but I'm never wrong.
Well, that's the main thing.
It's always a good way.
Very diplomatic, and I can neither confirm nor deny that the subject matter. But anyway, yeah. So any news from Formula 1 circles?
Oh, how long do we have? Let's see. Esteban Ocon, of course, was happy with his Monaco podium, he says here, clapping himself there on the screen. It was very nice. Here's an interesting one for you. Fernando Alonso putting up his exceptionally rare Ferrari supercar worth 3.8 million, is what he's putting that up for auction for charity, which is a great thing to see. We always like that. So we're hoping he will get a lot of money for that. I'd say it would be.
Are you going to put it in the bid yourself for it?
Well, I think Paul Egan actually has a bit of money put to one side. You know what he's like? You know, don't bid against Paul, because if he doesn't win, you know, you're going to hear it for the next 10 years. You're going to have to give him the car eventually.
You could buy a
so,
share,
you know, 3.8. 3.8 million. I think Paul can afford that, no problems whatsoever. You know yourself. Why would you? You know, it must be hard enough to part with a car like that after you've had it for a while, you know, and it's so rare. But anyhow, there's more controversy. I really don't know what's going on sometimes with this, because again, you know, we had this argument last week about, or this news that Lewis Hamilton was talking to Ferrari about a large deal for a multi-year deal with Ferrari. Now, as to where that's going, I have no idea. Toto Wolff says nothing's happening, and Lewis is just sort of smiling and grinning and giggling. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with that. I can't see Ferrari letting either Leclerc or Sainz go. It would be a bad idea, because they're exceptional drivers, and both of which could win a world championship. So I don't know what's going on. But now the rumor mill has hit Max Verstappen. Someone said he has revealed his plans for the future, including the possibility of a switch to Ferrari. Now, I do not know where this information comes from. I really don't, because Max has said on numerous occasions he's a multi-year deal with Red Bull with no end date, that he would race with Red Bull for the rest of his days. And I can't see, well, I could, I suppose, if Red Bull start doing bad, Max Verstappen won't stick around. He always has to have the fastest car. But at the same time, you know, when have we ever seen Red Bull doing badly? You know, I can't see where this is coming. I can't see why there's so many rumors about Ferrari at the minute. You know, this is happening and that's happening and the other is happening. Hopefully something will happen that'll change my mind and surprise me and give me something to talk about. But so far, I give up.
And yeah, we just go through the before we finish. We just go through the standings there. In first place, then we have Max Verstappen of Red Bull. He's on 144 points. In second place, Sergio Perez, Red Bull on 105. So a nice bit of a gap there between the top two. Not too far behind.
Yeah,
Then you have Fernando Alonso in third from Aston Martin on 93. Lewis Hamilton in fourth from Mercedes on 69. Now there's a nice bit of a gap. In fifth, then you have George Russell.
That's true.
Mercedes on 50. Carlos Sainz in sixth on 48 points. Charles Leclerc on 42 points in seventh, and in eighth, Lance Stroll in 27. So yeah, it's getting closer together the further you go down. Esteban Ocon in ninth on 21, and Pierre Gasly on 14 points in 10th. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, in fairness now, Esteban Ocon did an amazing job in Monaco, in the Alpine, and they've been very lackluster this year. So with Esteban, yeah, impressive. He's doing very well now. If he can keep up the good work, as they say, he can do something. Now, Fernando Alonso is not that far behind Sergio Perez and wouldn't be a massive distance behind Max Verstappen. And Fernando, I think, he made a statement there during the week, that, Max Verstappen, he might have a few dices at Max. I think Fernando is a realistic type of person. I'm not sure he thinks he can win this year, but I think he's going to take the fight to Max and make it difficult for him. Mainly because, well, that's his job, I suppose, in one way. In another way, he wants to make sure he can do it and, improve on the car for next year. So I would not knock Fernando Alonso out. And as much as Perez is going to try and lose him, no, I can see Alonso taking Perez. Now, the only thing that is disappointing for me is Aston Martin is Lance Stroll. He hasn't been doing great. And I mean, with his teammate in third and he's all the way back in eighth, he needs to be keeping up with his teammate. If you look at the top 10, the two Red Bulls are there beside each other, the two Mercedes are beside each other, the two Ferraris are beside each other, and the Alpines. And yet, I know he's not Fernando Alonso. No one is arguing, but he's a long way back. He needs to haul up a bit, as to say, on that one. That's about the way I'd see it. Charles Leclerc is on the comeback. Not fast enough. 42 points. It's 102 points behind Max Verstappen. It still can happen. It's like everything. Is 25 for a race win. And if he won, what? Well, he'd have to win 4 races, and Max would have to get no points in 4 races. So
yeah, probably not going. What's the likelihood of that happening?
Probably not going to happen. But it could happen for Fernando. It could happen for Alonso. I can see him pulling forwards, and he's a man on a roll at the minute. And he's a great guy, and he's a lovely fella, and he's doing his level best, like the not Monaco.
Sometimes nice fellas don't always win Grand Prix, though. Sometimes.
Oh, well, I mean, the thing about Fernando is he's like Michael Schumacher. He's a nice guy when he's not in the car.
I see where you're going from now.
It changes then, 2 races ago he was.
Friendship goes out the window then, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like 2 races ago, he was saying how good an overtaking maneuver that Lance pulled just by looking at a screen as he was going by it, hurtling by in a Formula 1 car, trying to go around the corner as fast as you can. So he's praising his teammate when really, to be honest with you, Lance needs a bit of a sort of a thump at this stage. I mean, Alonso's nearly 4 times his points. That's a big difference, for 2 drivers in the same team. That's a massive difference. So, I mean, I don't know what he's going to do, Lance. I think he needs to pull forwards. I think that's what he needs to do. And I'm sure he knows this. I'm sure he knows this in advance. Everybody does.
I know he takes I know you give him advice, and he takes your advice very seriously. And, when he knows you're the man, you're his consultant and all that. So, you could be.
Well, Fernando keeps telling them to listen to me. So you know yourself.
So we all need to talk to an expert every now and again, I suppose.
Oh, we all need to. Actually, a little thing I did spot during the week: Formula 1 and Sky Television are actually going to be producing Grand Prix broadcasts for children.
There you go.
That's an interesting little setup. I suppose maybe with some of the talk that you get on sort of the race in general can be a bit technical. Maybe for younger kids, I don't know. My fella's 13; he loves it. But maybe for younger kids who might be trying to, who might like it, maybe it's a bit technical. So maybe they're going to try and, get a good presenter in there, and it all depends on who you get. It's like everything, yourself. A good children's presenter can really pull something up. So maybe they're looking for the next generation of fans.
There you go. There's a job for you.
Yeah, it's fine by me. I'll do it.
Could they afford you?
Well, that could be problematic, all right. I might do it a favor. I might do it as a favor.
All right, thanks very much, Michael, for doing
no problem at all.
Last Word on Formula 1, and we look forward to looking back at the Spanish Grand Prix and looking forward to the next one then. So we'll talk to you then.
Absolutely. Talk to you then, Aidan. Take care, mate.
Thanks very much. And that was Michael O'Grady, our Formula 1 expert.